I'll have to think of an introduction. I never write down any questions beforehand. That's always been my style, really. So 3, 2, 1. Ding, ding, ding. Noah Bradon, welcome to tonight's show. You're the second creator I've talked to on Creator Spotlight. And so I knew you. I knew I was paying attention to your work a few months ago. And suddenly I was looking back at your work, and you've surpassed me by far, even though I've been in the YouTube realm for almost a year now. And so I'm interested to learn those secrets. So hopefully by you explaining those can help other people as well, other creators. And yeah, I'm just interested to know your backstory. How did you get into content creation? Why did you want to start doing that? And so you were a part of a production company. Tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, no, thank you, Michael. I'm really happy to be here and happy to be talking about some of my favorite things to talk about. I like to talk in general, but as you can probably imagine, right? You don't really start a podcast and start a YouTube channel unless you at least like to talk a little bit too much. I've halfway joked that I started a podcast because my wife got tired of hearing me talk. She approved that joke, so it has her approval. But so how did I get started in media and production in general? So I actually started out as an English major in undergrad, went the creative writing route and specialized both in fiction and script writing as my two particular focuses within my major. So as a result of that, and as well as I was only a credit shy of a minor in film, just because it was something that's always fascinated me. I've always loved stories, whether it's written stories, whether it's stories in film, really stories of any fashion, if they are compelling, human first stories that actually, capture the heart or, really of any format. So I grew up in that environment and I grew up in a family of artists. So that's probably a relevant backstory detail. But in terms of my professional focus, I started out my career as a journalist before switching very quickly into content marketing. So advertorial copywriting, started out for real estate features and stuff like that. So very unimpressive journalistic writing, but kind of just slugged my way through a lot of really bad stories for long enough and started to get a couple better ones. And, just kind of worked my way up to the point where a few years in, or about 3 or 4 years into that job, that was for a Chicago-based content production company. I was working as their copy chief. So I was basically managing most of their features and all of their advertorial copy at that point for a variety of clients across the country. So at that point, I was effectively producing content, but everything but video. So I was managing writers, editors, designers, web developers, and the like, but no video at that point because it was entirely, it was the print world. It was like the print world when it was switched to digital, but in the fledgling kind of digital stage. So so I was weird. Like I started out my career largely in the remote capacity. So I've been remote like before it was the popular thing as a writer. So when the world shifted into the remote thing, I was ready. I was excited about that. So yeah, at that point I was, managing a team of content producers, basically every form of new media except for video. And I say that because it was a natural segue into my time working in video production. So at that point, I met a guy who became, or actually I reconnected with a guy who became my business partner. We co-founded a media agency called Motivo Media. It's still in operation. It's now based in Seattle. That's where my business partner was based out of. And we started that together. So effectively, he was someone who had a ton of connections and a large network within the video world. And he was approached with a project that was too big for him to manage by himself. So he needed a producer who had an eye for operations and scalability to kind of come in. Well, we didn't know that last part. So I'm sort of giving away the ending, but he needed someone to help him manage the project. So he approached me and was like, look, you're a producer. Like, I know you haven't done video, but like, I need someone to help me manage this project. It's the same thing. I mean, I'll handle all the video particular stuff on set. Can you do everything else? Basically manage pre-production, manage post-production. And it was shockingly similar to what I'd already been doing, because in some sense, producing media is producing media, right? It's just different forms of media. There's a lot of similarities. It's creative project management, right? So I say that because it was a natural fit. So he approached me with a project that was actually originally just for production. And I said, hey, I'd love to do it. I'd love to, partner with you in this, but let's pitch them for the entire production. So what was like a very small, like, hey, we need someone to come in and do production, like actually just produce it on set. I'm talking about like in the technical sense of the on-set days, the shooting and, the gaffing, the grip, all the kind of like the crew work. And so I said, but let's pitch on the entire project. Like we can do this entire thing. We can go from pre-production into post and the entire thing. So we pitched them on a 6-figure project, and we formed an LLC to take it, and we got it. Like we literally formed an LLC to take it. We only had one client, one project, but it was a 2-year project, basically. Like it was a 2-year, 6-figure project. And we built a company around it. And at that point, I dove headfirst into producing full-time. So I produced full-time, predominantly documentary content, branded docs, story-driven doc style, commercial projects. So, I did a series for Amazon, for, Alexa, featuring people who had actually benefited from the Alexa project. Long story short, as a result of this project, launching our LLC, and then we quickly got a couple more clients and then started to build a company around that. And I was very quickly full-time in production. So about 6 months later, I quit my other job. And I did that for about 7 years. So then I ran my company that I co-founded. I ran that company with my partner for 5 years. And then about 1.5 years ago, I let him buy me out. So I left the company to focus more on, a lot of my Catholic related work, to be honest with you. So a conversion happened in that period. I converted to Catholicism about 3 years ago. I enrolled in grad school at Notre Dame about 2 years ago. So I had these sequence of events kind of building up to what very much was a shift in my own priorities. So we had a very amicable exit. Motivo is still alive and thriving. It's Motivo Media, if anyone wants to look it up. It's a Seattle-based company, but most of our clientele was in DC. So a lot of education work, think tank work, branded docs. That's usually who's paying for branded docs. If you ever want to get into branded docs, it's usually DC-based think tanks and nonprofits who have grants. I don't know if that's useful information for creatives here, but it might be.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say, and so, like my next question would be, so getting into YouTube, you started the YouTube channel a couple years ago, maybe, like you had some kind of projects on there, but then it kind of transitioned into your Catholic videos. So you've been putting those out for the last few months. You started the podcast and all of that, have been interviewing some of the Catholic creators like Michael Lofton, Kyle Whittington.
Most recently, I've had a handful of them, and it's great. So I had Austin Suggs on as well from Gospel Simplicity a couple months back, and Gary Machuda as well. So the YouTube thing. So I had been producing content for quite a while that ended up living on YouTube. It was just for clients' channels. So don't think necessarily that I just entered YouTube a couple months ago, like as a brand new to YouTube thing. I think that would be something that might make people unnecessarily discouraged. And I don't think that that's a fair representation. So I had been involved in content that was being optimized for YouTube for a long time. I mean, a lot of these branded docs would actually live on YouTube. And I was involved not only in the production of this content, but also in the marketing of it and in the advertising of it. So I would run ad budgets for videos and stuff. So I have an unfair advantage in terms of my background and experience, and like so it's definitely one of those things where I in some ways I wish I had kind of gotten into it in a bigger way sooner, because I waited until I was completely confident in my ability to do it, to enter it. And I regret that. So I think if anyone's listening, I think actually my one regret with YouTube is actually wish I had entered earlier. I think that would have been smarter, because I wish I had gotten through those first 20 videos, which are the most painful, or whatever number it is. That's somewhat arbitrary, but that first 10, 20, 30, 50, whatever videos it is, like get through those as fast as you can. And I don't mean like literally as fast as you can, like pump out terrible content, but like do as well as you can and improve on one or two things every video as you go. But like the goal there at that beginning, I think, is iterate as fast as you can and try to find your, I mean, I don't know if this has been coined by someone else, but like your minimum viable production or your minimum viable product, right? Like that's definitely not my term. Like that's the sales economics term, right? Your minimum viable product that you get. But like in this case, we're like looking almost like what's your minimum viable production? Like will help your channel grow. So maybe it's short content, but sometimes short content can be deceivingly hard because it requires more hefty edits, right? Whereas long form content that's live stream based could actually be a lot easier if you're comfortable talking live. Or if you sound terrible live, like you need to edit your stuff. And so there's all these like kind of like intersecting priorities and there's tension and trade-offs between them. And there's not really a right answer other than to find that piece of content that you can build your brand around, or pieces of content. I just like to simplify it because I think sometimes people are like, oh my goodness, I have to have like live streams and videos and shorts. And it's like, well, yeah, sort of, but like think about your one core piece of content. That's your pillar content, right? And then you can make short form content from it. So if it's live streams, like great, awesome. Then do short summary videos that you edit from the live streams and then chop those up into shorts. So it's all focused on the live streams, right? And then it's just two separate edits down from it. But whatever that is, or if you hate live streams, like if that's a terrifying thought, because sometimes it is for people, like genuinely. And I'm someone who had to overcome a terrible amount of anxiety for public speaking. So like, believe me, like I get it. Like if someone's out there like and they're just like terrified by the prospect, I mean, I would be like uncontrollably like sweaty before these types of things, and I would just like have like the nerves would be firing. So like I completely understand it. And I think that's another reason to get through those first 50 videos as soon as you can. I've upped the number to 50 now. But I think that's probably a better number, right? Because I mean, what do they say? Like that whole, you got to be 10,000 hours of whatever thing to actually become a master at it. Like,
yeah,
I'm an over planner, right? Like I wanted to have the perfect video at the beginning, right? Like even if no one would see it, like I wanted it to be perfect from the get-go. No one's going to resent you for the fact that you have bad content. Like if like, especially if you're improving and growing. I mean, they might resent if you always have bad content, but that they will resent that.
Yeah, because like a lot of YouTube is really knowledge. And so just
Mm.
getting out there and doing it, you learn from that.
Absolutely.
And so there's no way that the algorithm is random. People will blame it on that. They say, oh, the algorithm is the reason I'm not succeeding. But do you have any advice for those people? What's the one thing they can do, perhaps like the thumbnail or title? What's the one thing they should focus on to really get their content out there to make it engaging content? What's the secret there?
Well, that's a great question. And I actually don't think, I mean, I'm someone who has unfairly perhaps derided the algorithm before in the past, but you're right. You're right, Michael. It's not out to get you. The algorithm actually, if you know how to harness its power, wants to work with you in the sense that your goals can be aligned with it. It's not that it's actually out to help you. It's actually out to help viewers stay on YouTube. So what it wants is for people to continue to consume content on YouTube. So it cares about a couple different things. It cares about viewer engagement on your content, but it also cares about what people do after they watch your content. Are they clicking away and leaving YouTube? That will actually work against your favor. Whereas if they are clicking on to other content, whether your videos in a playlist or other suggested content, and they stay on YouTube, that will actually be valued in your favor, like in your content's favor, and they'll start feeding it to more people. So they want people to consume content on YouTube. The algorithm wants that. Like, so that's the good news for everyone. YouTube wants people to watch YouTube videos. They don't care if it's a no-name creator or if it's, whoever your, 10 million subscriber kind of person you follow is, right? They really don't, because they just want people to stay on YouTube and watch YouTube videos. So that's the good news. Like, there's no real gatekeeper. Like, it is actually equal access in a sense. Now, I say in a sense because as you build up subscribers, this becomes much easier, because as you build up subscribers, it's fed to more people into their libraries, right? So those initial views are much easier to find. So it's easier to get that initial traction, right? So there is a little bit of the, like, you just have to, it's a slog for a while, right? Like there is a little bit of that. Like the first challenge is building enough of an audience to get recurring views, right? In a sense, because once you start getting those recurring views, you can count on 50 per video, you can count on 100 per video, and not just like 5 or 10 or whatever it is. whatever that baseline is. And don't beat yourself up if it is 50. Like that could be a great goal, like, but you get 50 for all of them, and then you get 100 for all of them, and then start working on that. That can actually be a better measurement of success sometimes than whether one video gets 1,000 and one video gets 100. Now, I say that as someone who has great disparity in views on my videos. So like, I'm not saying this is like a problem, right? I have some videos that have thousands of views and some videos that have like 70 views. Like I have all over the place. Did I answer your question? I hope I did.
Yeah, for sure. I'd say, but yeah, like talking more about your content, you've been consistent. I think that's another huge thing. You've talked about like the importance of playlists or suggestions. And so when people watch one of your videos, they like it. They'll then continue to watch your videos. And so I think that's something that has really played in your favor. Every video has been consistent. And so I think that comes from your background, of course, having the knowledge and all of that. And so, yeah, like just the content you make, good Catholic content. Has there been a favorite video so far?
The favorite video by my, like, for me or for the audience? I'm curious.
Yeah, that you enjoyed making.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, this most recent one that I did where I pushed myself to edit a little bit more, and I added a couple little shots of B-roll, which is very much outside of my wheelhouse as someone who's a writer and producer focused, right? Like, it's not like all filmmaking is created equal. Like, yes, I can I can operate a camera, but like, I'm not a camera operator. Like, I would not hire myself out to a client as such, right? So it's sort of a very different world. So I just say that because sometimes people, I think like, oh, you're a producer, like you do everything. It's like, well, not necessarily. So anyways, so I guess I can answer that in a couple different ways. I really enjoy interviewing people. So I was fortunate enough to be a producer and director of documentaries, as I mentioned before. And as a result of that, I interviewed hundreds and hundreds of people. So that occurred during pre-production, that occurred on camera during production, in all sorts of different ways, right? The research stage as well as the production stage on camera. But but then at that point, I was safely behind the camera, like off screen, right? Asking people questions, and my voice wasn't heard. So it was interesting. So I was very comfortable though with interviewing people, and I'm a curious person, and I love having the opportunity to have dedicated, focused conversations. It's a real value to me. Like I view it as a true value.
Yeah, definitely.
So I love being able to interview people. So in one sense, I would have to say that like all of my interview content on the It's Noable podcast series would be my favorite, just because I've learned from other people, and it seems almost like unfair that I get to have these great conversations. People actually listen to them, and it helps my YouTube channel grow. And I'm like, I'm just having these conversations I want to have with these people that I want to talk to. And I mean that, I don't mean that flippantly. I think there's actually something to extract from that. I think the more closely you can align your brand with something that you are already passionate about, the better off you're going to be. So vidIQ, right? They have a free version. I actually recommend everyone get it. They also have a paid version if you want to go further, but vidIQ at the very least, I would recommend everyone who has a YouTube channel sign up for their free version. It will give you a lot more analytics than YouTube Studio can provide.
Yeah, I'm taking notes myself here.
Yeah, no, definitely do that. Actually, I had watched their videos for quite a while and taken some of their advice, but it was actually Bradon Cook, the catechumen, who recommended I subscribe to them. And I thought it was only a paid service, but it's actually a freemium model, and their free service is quite good. So I haven't upgraded to the paid version. They give you keyword suggestions. They give you title suggestions. Now, I haven't used these yet, so I haven't like seen the results of this applied. So that being said, I've used a lot of the same underlying strategies because I've followed their content and other similar things. So I recommend it. I mean, I think it will teach people, especially people who are brand new to it, will benefit the most from it. But I think people at any stage would benefit from some of it, right? Like you might learn something about thumbnails. You might learn something about titling, But one of the biggest things that they recommend, I think the number one thing that they recommend, they kick off the whole sort of course, and it's an interactive. They've gamified the system. So you know how Duolingo has like, kind of tracks your progress and all that kind of stuff. They've done something similar. So you can learn, do a learning lesson each day, kind of deal. But the thing that they lead off with is that passion is the most important thing. And of course I rolled my eyes because it's like, cheesy. Like, of course everyone says that, right? It's like the creative thing, like gotta be passionate and like real and authentic, like those buzzwords, but they're not wrong. Like it's true. It really is. And the reason it's true is because if you're not passionate about what you're talking about and about what your content is focused on, you will absolutely burn out under the weight of all of the stuff that you don't enjoy doing. Like there's a lot of tedious stuff related to YouTube, right? Like maybe you enjoy some of it. Hopefully you do enjoy some of it. Like otherwise you're going to have an even harder time. But chances are you're not going to enjoy all of it. Like I love producing, I love creating stuff, but it's still tedious, right? I mean, the writing, the ideas, the thumbnails, the testing, the back end, the sharing. I mean, it's a lot. And that's just for one video. And you have to do that constantly. Just keep doing it like a cycle, you know? And if you're not passionate about the content that you're producing, like about why, you know, if you don't have a real passion driving it, I think people will burn out. I think it's inevitable. I really do. And that's why I think, to answer your other question, I think maybe, or something that you mentioned earlier, you know, you mentioned my shift into the Catholic world. And I think one of the keys to my success has absolutely been focusing very much on a particular type of audience member. Now, it's not exclusively Catholic, but it's definitely a Catholic leaning, ecumenically minded, philosophy thinking theology group of people. And I know I kind of like mentioned a lot of things, and that's hyper niche, and that's good. Like if you want to build content, go hyper niche. Unless you are already famous and people want to watch you because you're, you know, Michael Snellen. The whole, is it Snellen or Schnellen?
Snellen.
Okay, I want to say the German because I took German. I want to say like Schnellen because it's like
that's probably the correct way. But
it probably is like the older way, but Snellen. Okay, yeah, it's like unless it's like they want to watch Michael Snellen because it's Michael Snellen telling them that, then you're going to have to convince people that it's worth watching. So people want to know, this is probably one of the biggest low-hanging fruits. People want their expectations to be set very quickly when they land on your channel. And then they want their expectations to be met by the other content they see on your channel. So if you get so lucky as to capture the interest of someone with one video, right? And then they go visit your channel, maybe because they're not going to just subscribe. Chances are they're not going to subscribe on that video. Chances are what they're going to do is go to your channel page. That's usually the user journey. So this is really important. This is why this is why the homepage is so important. This is why that banner is so important. Your about that, well, the first line of your about, because that's really all that's going to show is like that first line of your about. And they need to be able to tell from that banner and that first line of your about what your channel's about. Like, is it even worth checking it out? And then they're going to want to look at that first video, your intro video, whatever that channel trailer is. And mine's not great. It really isn't. It was one of the ones I did early on. I say a lot. I don't edit it out enough, but it's very clear about what the channel's about. I will say, like, if there's something good about what my channel intro is it tells exactly how I started the channel, how I shifted the channel to focus, what you can expect on the channel, how there's playlists below, what those playlists contain. So like, and then in the description section, I have all those playlists linked.
Yeah.
So you don't even have to scroll down, which they're also on my homepage. At least my favorite playlists are on my homepage. So you could scroll down and just do it, or you don't have to. You could just watch my main video. And if you see it on the homepage, that description will show up on your web browser, at least not on mobile, but on web browser, that description will show up to the right of that channel intro video on your homepage. So they'll see those playlist links right there. So they can watch that for a minute or two, get tired of the intro video. It doesn't even matter because all they have to do is want to click on that playlist.
Yeah.
And remember the algorithm, right? The algorithm wants people to stay on YouTube. Like they don't care if it's your content or someone else's. They just want them to stay on it. So I think that's why I would just really, it's not like any one thing. I think a lot of it's understanding how the user journey impacts your channel and why these things matter. I think that's maybe something that will help a lot of people is understanding why. Why does that channel intro matter? Like, why does the banner know? Because people want to know what your channel is about. They will not look at all of your video titles to see. You have not earned that time from them. Because remember, people are hyper protective of their time. Like that's perhaps the thing that we have no attention span. So you have to basically show someone in like a second and a half what your channel is about, and then generally they need to be able to see content from your channel and be like, yeah, that's kind of what I expected. Not exactly, it doesn't have to be like in gory detail, but like Yeah, if you want to really boost your the algorithm and kind of lean into that and get recommended to more people who are likely to do it, it's that combo of catching their attention with the one video. So that's where the thumbnail comes in. That's where the title comes in, because they're not going to click on that one video if they don't have a thumbnail and a title, that is. And then that one video has to be good enough. So I recommend also sometimes using particular videos as your like marketing flagship videos, because not all your videos are probably going to be as good as some of them, right? It's hard
Yeah,
to.
of course.
So find one that really resonates with people. And a good testing thing is like, is it performing well organically? Like, are you seeing a lot of like organic performance? And so if like one video is performing well, maybe you use that one to share on your other social media platforms. Maybe use that one to like lead off. Maybe use that one to show, you know, on your homepage, how you can set the video for recurring visitors, like for people who are already subscribed. Maybe that's the one you have shown for them. So whenever they're coming back, because remember, think about the user who doesn't know you. They saw your video, maybe you convince them to subscribe, and then a month later they see your video. They're like, wait, who is this? And so they're fed that next video. So if that video is good enough, then you actually might start to get someone that wants to see your videos, who starts to really like care, because a subscriber is valuable, but it's not like necessarily equating to people consuming all of your content voraciously either. So it's a weird thing, kind of how it all meshes together.
Yeah, so very knowledgeable. And so you've only been doing this for a few months on paper, really, Catholic YouTube videos, but you have this wealth of knowledge.
But yeah, I've
So
only been doing it for myself for a couple of months. Yeah, I just had to do it for other people were paying me to do it before.
yeah. And so, yeah, the enjoyment there, that's the other thing that really sticks out to me, just your enjoyment of this. And so I don't expect you to burn out anytime soon. So yes, thank you for joining the show and really spreading this knowledge with everyone. I'm sure a couple of different people will be inspired to maybe join YouTube, or some of the Catholic YouTubers will be able to learn the YouTube knowledge better and really spread the gospel. So that's what it's all about. We are all part of the same army, spreading the gospel. So thanks again, Noah, and may God bless everyone.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Michael. Thank you so much for having me.